This is VOA Africa.
Good evening, I'm Esther Githuyu. It's Friday, December 20th. This is Africa 54. Nigerian lawmakers are considering legislation that would regulate speech on the internet and social media. The impeachment of U.S. President Donald Trump leads to sharp differences between Democratic and Republican leaders in the Senate over how to conduct a trial. And Uganda's Massacre Kids Africana are back for an encore performance. We'll have those stories in a moment, but first, Ethiopia launched its first satellite into space on Friday from a space station in China. Ethiopian and Chinese officials and scientists, however, watched a live broadcast of the Ethiopian remote sensing satellite launch at the Entoto Observatory and Research Center, north of the capital, Addis Ababa. Deputy Prime Minister Demeke Mekonnen said in a speech at the event, "This will be a foundation of our historic journey to prosperity." Solomon Belay, the Director General of the Ethiopian Space Science and Technology Institute, told reporters that China covered most of the costs of building the satellite. The data from the satellite will help Ethiopia to monitor the country's resources and improve its responses. Nigerian lawmakers are considering two bills that would regulate speech on the internet and in social media. Supporters of the legislation say it's aimed at eliminating hate speech and the spreading of falsehoods. But opponents say the bills will stifle free expression and make it a crime to criticize public policies or officials. Timothy Obiezu reports from Abuja.
I want to deposit. I want to vibrate. I want to fundamentally legislate.
A coalition of civic and human rights groups in Nigeria demonstrate at the National Assembly, where lawmakers have proposed the so-called social media bill and the prohibition of hate speech bill. A group of lawmakers introduced the bills in November with the stated aim of eliminating internet falsehoods and extremist ideologies that may threaten national security and dim public confidence in political office holders. But opponents say the bills are equally capable of stifling free opinions.
These two bills will continue to also hamper the right of Nigerians to speak their mind. And something is also very important. And we used to have the judiciary in Nigeria as the last hope of the common man. Currently, even the judiciary has been annexed by the current executive in Nigeria. So the last hope and the last hope of the common man today is the social media. And that's exactly what one of these two bills intend to do.
About one-third of Nigeria's estimated 113 million internet users possess social media accounts. And for years, these accounts have been used to speak freely against public policies and officials. If the social media law is passed, offenders would pay about $825 or serve a 3-year jail term, while hate speech offenders could meet even stiffer penalties. Citizens say the bills are extreme.
I think it's a misguided priority for the government. The government has a lot to bother about right now, beyond trying to frustrate people from expressing their opinion.
Senator Sabi Abdullahi is in favor of the bills.
If you meet those who have lost their loved ones, arising from violence due to ethnicity or religious intolerance and the like, I don't think they will be smiling with you when you tell them hate speech is nonsense.
In recent months, the Nigerian government has been accused by rights groups like Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International of increasing restrictions on civic freedom. Martin Obono is a human rights lawyer.
The Constitution under Section 4 guarantees you freedoms.
So there are fundamental freedoms within which the Constitution guarantees everybody in Nigeria. So you have freedom of expression, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of association, and the rest. And now these are all these freedoms. All these freedoms that actually make up what is called civic space. Now, if anything affects these freedoms, it automatically means that you're limiting it.
The bills made first and second reading at the Senate only weeks after they were proposed, a rare event in Nigeria's legislative process where many bills take months or even years. Critics accuse legislators of fast-tracking the process to serve their own interests. For now, the bills are suspended until a public hearing is conducted next year. In the meantime, opponents will continue to demand the bills be eliminated. Timothy Obiezu for VOA News, Abuja.
The struggle for pro-independence groups to separate Biafra from Nigeria is still going strong more than 50 years after a brutal civil war over secessionist rebellion. Now it's mainly young activists from southeastern Nigeria, also known as Eboland, that are renewing calls for separation. Africa 54's Paul Ndiho has more.
More than 50 years ago, military leaders of the Igbo people attempted to create the independent Republic of Biafra through the eastern region of Nigeria. The attempt failed, but the effort was accompanied by large-scale massacres. Today, calls for a separate state are still very much alive, and frustrations have grown over the decades.
No harassment, no violence. It's non-violence. The Biafra is a spirit, is in our hearts.
We will live and die as indigenous people of Biafra. You can't take that away from us. It's an ideology that nobody can crush.
I fought under 4th Battalion of Biafra Army. So why I still processing Biafra is because of many souls I joined the soldier with them. Many souls that left us.
In an earlier interview with the Voice of America, Nnamdi Kanu, leader of the main pro-independence, the indigenous people of Biafra, said that the indigenous Igbo people still face a lot of injustices and deprivation, the very causes for the civil war.
The mission and the value of IPOB is very simple: to restore Biafra, to make sure that Biafra comes by whatever means possible. We have chosen the track of peaceful agitation, non-violence, persuasion, logic, reason, argument. We're going to deploy all of that to make sure that we get Biafra.
Analysts say that the current main pro-independence groups want a referendum on self-determination because they feel excluded from economic and political power.
Our ultimate goal is freedom. Referendum is the path we've chosen to take to get Biafra. And that referendum, as I said earlier, is what we must have.
Nigeria is made up of some 250 ethnic groups and broadly divided between the mostly Muslim north and mainly Christian south. And young people in Eboland seem to favor independence. But the government of Nigeria denies those claims. The self-proclaimed Republic of Biafra only existed for nearly 3 years, from May 1967 until January 1970. Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari's administration continues to face many violent separatist claims that threaten the country's unity. The Boko Haram terrorist group in the northeastern part of the country is still seeking to create a hardline Islamic state, while in the oil-producing Niger Delta, some rebels are continuing to cause havoc. And that has led to a slump in oil production and staggering Nigeria's economy. Paul Ndiho, VOA News.
Health officials in eastern Congo have documented the first relapse in the ongoing Ebola epidemic, according to the World Health Organization. The Ebola outbreak in DRC has infected more than 3,000 people and killed more than 2,000 since the middle of 2018, making it the second worst on record. In early December, Congolese health authorities reported that a survivor in Mabalako, North Kivu province, had fallen ill with the virus again. The WHO says 11 new Ebola cases were confirmed in the past week, all of whom are believed to have caught the virus from the person who relapsed. Now, the president of Guinea, Alpha Conde, says he will seek a public referendum on a new constitution, a move his opponents fear he will use as a pretext to hang on to power beyond the end of his constitutional mandate. Conde has governed since 2010, and his second and final 5-year term ends next year. In recent months, demonstrations against a possible constitutional change have resulted in at least 14 deaths countrywide. The opposition suspects Conde, 81, is planning to use a new constitution as a reset button on the current 2-term limit. The proposed draft for a new constitution does not explicitly state whether Conde would be eligible for the 2020 election, but has refused to rule out running. U.S. congressional leaders are speaking out about the next steps in the Senate after the House on Wednesday voted to impeach President Donald Trump. The U.S. Constitution stipulates the Senate should now conduct a trial, but there are sharp differences between Democratic and Republican leaders in Congress over exactly how this might happen. Here's VOA's Jeff Custer.
The democratically controlled House approved 2 articles of impeachment against President Trump for abusing the power of the presidency to benefit himself politically and for obstructing congressional efforts to investigate his actions. No Republicans voted for the measure. Later, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi refused to say when she would send the articles of impeachment to the Senate, saying she first had to see what that trial might look like. Early Thursday, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell took to the Senate floor and condemned the Democrats, saying Pelosi is afraid to send over what he called their shoddy work. He said it is up to the Senate to correct that by acquitting Trump.
The Senate must put this right. We must rise to the occasion. There's only one outcome that is suited to the paucity of evidence, the failed inquiry, the slapdash case. It could not be clearer which outcome would serve the stabilizing, institution-preserving, fever-breaking role for which the United States Senate was created, and which outcome would betray it.
Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer countered the Majority Leader's comments, noting McConnell himself had said he had no intention of being impartial in a Senate trial.
The message from Leader McConnell at the moment is that he has no intention of conducting a fair trial, no intention of acting impartially, no intention of getting the facts.
At her regular Thursday news conference, Pelosi once again refused to specify when she might send the articles of impeachment to the Senate.
The next thing for us will be when we see the process that is set forth in the Senate, then we'll know the number of managers that we may have to go forward and who we would choose.
A trial in the Senate, which McConnell has said would be a top priority in January, is likely to end with Trump's acquittal by the majority Republican body. Jeff Custer, VOA News, Washington.
We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also, check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, U.S. Democratic presidential candidates slug it out in the last debate of the year. You're watching Africa 54, and we'll be right back.
Is about more than just sitting here and talking about women's issues. It's about listening to them. and bringing their opinions to the table and making sure their voices are heard.
Because our lived experiences, our stories, and our voices will help shape the next generation.
U.S. Democratic presidential candidates held their liveliest debate yet Thursday night in California. 7 contenders were on the debate stage in Los Angeles and clashed over the economy, healthcare, climate change, campaign finance reform, and who best can defeat President Trump next year. VOA national correspondent Jim Malone has the debate highlights.
President Trump's impeachment by the House this week was a major point of discussion in the debate sponsored by the PBS NewsHour and Politico. All the Democratic candidates supported Trump's impeachment, including frontrunner Joe Biden. But Biden said he would work with Republicans if elected next year.
I refuse to accept the notion, as some on this stage do, that we can never get to a place where we have cooperation again. If that's the case, we're dead as a country. We need to be able to reach consensus.
Biden, who is 77, would not commit to running for a second term if elected next November. Trailing Biden in second place in several new polls is Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders. Sanders targeted President Trump's economic record.
We need an economy that works for working families, not just the 1%. That is what our campaign is about.
The economy was also a focus for Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren. Warren pledged to tackle the divide between rich and poor.
And when you see a government that works great for the wealthy and the well-connected and for no one else, that is corruption, pure and simple, and we need to call it out for what it is.
Rounding out the top tier of contenders is South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg. Buttigieg warned Democrats they could alienate voters with sweeping and costly economic proposals.
Yes, we must deliver big ideas. And yes, taxes on wealthy individuals and on corporations are going to have to go up. We can also be smart about the promises we're making. Make sure they're promises that we can keep.
Businessman Andrew Yang warned Democrats that they risk losing the White House in 2020 if they focus only on President Trump.
The more we act like Donald Trump is the cause of all of our problems, the more Americans lose trust that we can actually see what's going on in our communities and solve those problems.
Trade and foreign policy issues also got attention in this latest debate. Several candidates expressed support for the pro-democracy demonstrators in Hong Kong, including Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar.
So if we want to send a message to the Chinese, we stand with our allies. We stand with them firmly. We have a very clear and coherent foreign policy when it comes to human rights.
Also taking part in Thursday's debate was businessman Tom Steyer. The Iowa presidential caucuses kick off the campaign season on February 3rd. Jim Malone, VOA News, Washington.
Now, for more on the Democratic debate action, Associated Press reporter Philip Crowther joins me live from Los Angeles. Hello, Philip.
Hello.
Now, fill us in on the highs and lows of last night's debate.
Well, I don't know whether these are necessarily highs and lows, but let me take you through the chronology, if you will, of the very start of this debate. Remember that this debate happened exactly 24 hours after the impeachment of a U.S. president, one of the most important moments in the recent political history of the United States. So, of course, the first question that was asked to these candidates was about impeachment, precisely what they were going to do to be able to convince Americans to side with them that the impeachment of President Donald Trump is, in fact, the right thing to do. Now, each candidate out of those 7 did answer that question, not necessarily directly, but that was it when it came to impeachment. Then things moved on to those issues that these Democratic presidential candidates have wanted to talk about for months now, with, of course, the impeachment of President Trump sucking all the oxygen out of the political debate in Washington for months now. So they will be happy with that. That will be the high, if you will, of this debate for those candidates. They were able to have a substantive debate that wasn't all about impeachment or all about the president. But that might also be the low of this debate, because one of the most consequential moments of U.S. political history happened just 24 hours beforehand and was barely mentioned.
Yeah, yes, Phil, and some of the issues where they clashed were on climate change, economic issues here in the U.S., and a few other things that touched on a broader-based concerns of the voters. But who was more convincing?
Well, I would say, first of all, that when it comes to climate change, one of the most important subjects, of course, that there is right now, and one that is particularly important to California voters, there was not a lot of time dedicated to that subject matter. That might very well be a disappointment to a lot of Democratic voters, particularly here in this very important state for the Democratic Party. Now, when it comes to the economy, you saw on stage yesterday something that you've seen over the last 6 debates now. We've had 6 out of 12 altogether. That division within the Democratic Party that we knew existed and has now been personified by some of those candidates on stage. The more progressive part of the political party, the likes of Senator Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren on one side, and then the more moderate side, if you will, with the front runner Joe Biden in the very middle. Now, one of the big subject matters that they've been debating for a long time is healthcare, for example, how big a role the federal government should play in healthcare reform, and that is something where those candidates differ very, very significantly, and of course on the economy as well. But these are tendencies that we already knew existed within the Democratic Party.
And you mentioned Elizabeth Warren, and they had a bit of feud between her and Pete Buttigieg. Did that in any way sway their base supporters?
I don't think so necessarily, but it was certainly the most memorable moment of this 6th and final debate of the year 2019. A clash between 2 candidates who already on the campaign trail have been going after each other a little bit. This is about campaign finance, about whether to accept big dollar donations from very, very rich donors within the Democratic Party or from outside. Pete Buttigieg, the mayor of South Bend, who is going up in those polls steadily, he accepts those donations and, for example, had a big money fundraiser in a wine cave in the Napa Valley very recently. And that is what led to that debate between those 2 candidates. Elizabeth Warren is one of those candidates who says she only wants small donations, exactly the same as Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders. So there is one big moment in that debate that was particularly memorable.
All right, Philip, thank you so much. Philip Crowther is a reporter with Associated Press Global Media Services. It's time for our entertainment segment, and joining us now is VOA Music Time in Africa host Heather Maxwell with another exciting music selection. Hello, Heather.
Hello, Esther. Happy Friday, everyone. Earlier this year, I featured a fun, adorable music video that demonstrates how to dance away stress. Well, by popular demand, I'm bringing it back again for you today. It's the perfect time, too, for it, with the holiday season upon us. Here is Kumbaya Dance by the Masaka Kids Africana from Uganda. All right, and that is the Masaka Kids Africana with a great message for all of us this weekend and into the new year. That's our entertainment for this week. Esther, back to you.
Heather, Uganda Got Talent. Thank you so much. Join Heather Maxwell again next Friday for another exciting entertainment report right here on Africa 54. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, have a great weekend.